Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Moshe Mikanovsky, product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back. Today, we're happy to have the founder of Delibr, Nils Janes, on the show to talk about the product. How you doing, Nils?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you doing?
Doing wonderful. Hello, Moshe.
Hey, Matt. Hi, Nils. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So we're excited to have you. You're, I love your energy every time we talk with you. So we also excited to hear everything about Delibr. So first of all, tell us about yourself.
I'm Nils. I'm the founder of Delibr, father of two, engineering background. Also, I was a consultant at McKinsey for about 6 years. I was on the board of Storytel, which is kind of Audible in Europe, for about 8 years, from 20 to 800 people. I wrote a book about product management and working with the feature documents.
Good. That's called the Epic Alignment.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
maybe if you can talk a little bit about that book, how that came to be, that'd be really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that the book came to be was when we developed Delibr, we had a ridiculous amount of user interviews. So interviewed over 300 product managers on kind of how they work, what their process is, what their setup is like. And took a lot of notes, and then also, of course, did a lot of reading around different adjacent topics, so to speak. And then I started out saying that I learned so much from talking to all these PMs. So we should try to codify it in some way. So I wrote a couple of blog articles, and then at some point I just said, this is so much. I should just take these blog articles, combine them, and fill up with the other stuff we learned, and it will be a book. And then that was much, much bigger than I anticipated. But after about, it was more than a year of really working and massaging the text and getting so much feedback from different product leaders. And it was really painful. I mean, you know this as well, Moshe, but writing a book is tough. I mean, the thing that happens is that if you just have like a blog article, you can shift it around quite easily. But I went through, I don't know, it was like 5 or 6 review rounds, and every time it was like really good points, and the points were kind of high level. So I kind of had to shift like 150 pages, 15 degrees. And that means basically rewriting everything. So I was really, really interesting work, and learned a lot and thought a lot about kind of how product managers can work with kind of feature refinement. So that was that's the kind of core of the book. Super exciting.
Yeah, very, very nice. So did Delibr come out of the book, or did Delibr come before the book?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, it's kind of both, because Delibr was one thing going into the book, and now everything that we learned with working with the book is kind of being fed back into the app. And so it's a little bit of both, actually, in a weird way.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting way of unintentionally developing your product by writing a book.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That's kind of a cool path to producing both of those things. So very exciting. I'm looking forward to reading it.
Yeah, you also mentioned at the back of the book, or at the end of the book, there is a small section about how the book came to be. And you mentioned over there, you wrote it also to save democracy. Well, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So that goes back all the way to the very, very early stages of Delibr. So basically, I had 2 things that I was kind of. There's this thing about structured discussions that I really like. And at McKinsey, one of the things that I noticed that was an outsized part of how we helped our clients was just coming in and asking the management team the explicit question. So, okay, what is the question we're trying to answer here? And what are the different alternatives? Okay, and what are the pros and cons we see? And just being structured like that, often that led to much better progress in resolving the question. And that's something that I had as in my role as being a management consultant. And then as a counterpoint to this, because I think the management teams, they have to have some credit. They were still quite good at that. But then such a low point was looking at these televised political debates that you have, where politicians come up at each other and have these discussions, and then it's not clear what the question is, and they're not really agreeing on what the alternatives are or the pros and cons, but they're just kind of
they go off and
shouting at each other.
Right.
So I have this long kind of I'm really passionate about democracy, and I thought this was kind of one angle of it that I thought was really interesting. And so one of the things that we have really built into Delibr is a really good way to have structured discussions and kind of keep track of decisions in a good way. And one of the idea is that by kind of improving this way of having good and structured discussions with explicit questions for product managers, that's going to kind of go on to become the way that all knowledge workers work, because product managers are kind of pioneers in many ways. And then when you have like a broad practice of people being structured about explicit questions, really thinking about the options and pros and cons, and having that kind of way of thinking and working ingrained, I think my hope is that they're gonna come back and have like demand a higher standard of discussion in the political debate, and in turn that's going to yield much better politics and kind of thereby making a democracy more kind of viable and successful and so forth. There's a bit of a detour, but that's kind of it.
Yeah, but I love it how you said that we're in front of like we're explorers, and we find new ways to do things. So why not in democracy as well, right?
Exactly. Hopefully it will propagate to that once it's ingrained.
Yeah, perfect. So tell us about Delibr. What is Delibr? Well, what is the problem that Delibr is trying to solve? Yeah,
exactly. So the problem that Delibr is solving is a very specific part of the product manager job. So when a product manager comes to the point when they have a feature that's like a strong candidate, they have reason to believe that this is something that we should be doing. Well, then Delibr is the kind of tool to work with. And so what they want to do then is basically structure their thinking around how to make that feature, and then collaborate with team and stakeholders to kind of flesh it out, and then have like a good and smooth handover to the development team, and kind of keep that, make sure it goes all the way. So that's kind of where Delibr comes in. So kind of not so much the earlier phases about strategy and prioritization, but more about feature refinement. Not about like, we assume that you kind of go in with the right feature prioritized, and then we say, we help you get that feature right, so to speak. And so by doing that, we help product teams ship more product value. And for that process, it's super messy. We give PMs kind of a new level of clarity and flow. So basically, we take what's a document writing tool like a PRD, and we have like make that work much smoother and easier. We kind of built in user story maps in there. We have structured templates that you can inject different parts as you need them, and you can have like the decision making that I alluded to before, and then also like a two-way integration with Jira, and we integrate with Figma and Miro and the other tools that you use. So basically, for product managers, the kind of feature refinement work where they kind of collaborate with team and stakeholders to detail out what version of the feature is best to make. That's where we really come in and help them.
So you mentioned PRDs, and that's part of what many people are using and starting with. I can tell you, it's been years since I wrote PRD, because to me it's more of like a long form conglomeration of eventually what the stories are going to be.
Yes.
So what I'm doing today is I'm mostly have like a very short, what I call like product charter or feature charter or whatever it is. That has it's kind of maybe a take on what Amazon is doing with the 6-pagers.
Yes,
if people are familiar with that.
Yes.
But it has the basics of the why we want to have the feature and all the things that are coming before we actually build it, like you said. So the prioritization of that, or reasoning why we're building this, and then after that, using like Miro to build all of my flows and link them to different documents and stuff like that. So tell us a bit how Delibr is doing that. What is the added value that the users will get with Delibr if they use it?
Yeah, exactly. So super good. And so it's funny that you mentioned that the PRD, it was a long time since you wrote the formal PRD. One of the blog articles I wrote is actually saying that the PRD is the wrong way to go about it. So it's funny now that you catch me using the word PRD. We use the word because it's a very commonly used word.
It's in the lexicon, right?
It's like it's in the glossary that everybody uses, but
I'm not really sure why, actually, because it's been
exactly it's wrong because it's wrong, and the blog article is wrong in two ways. The first is that it says it stands for product requirements document, right? And so the first way in it's wrong is the word product, because it's not the product document, it's a feature document every time it's actually being used. And the second one is like requirements. It's much to it's like the word requirements. If you think about it just like that, then they're already in like a waterfall mindset.
Exactly.
So the way we like to think about it is like either like a feature document or like an epic document, but basically it's like an agile feature document centered around user stories. And so I completely agree with your setup, and like it's interesting that you use the Amazon analogy. We had that a lot from customers, but basically the starting point for a Delibr document is a super lean template where you just have problem, solution, stories, and rollout. And then you start out and you write like, what's the problem we're solving? Roughly what's the solution, and some ideas for stories. And then you dig in and add more details as you go. And then we have like templates we have like sub templates that you can easily inject as you need them, depending on what story it is. The different things need to be elaborated. So it can be anything, like maybe you want to define like measure of success. Sometimes it's relevant to do a little bit of an opportunity tree for it, or like a validation effort or whatever. So that's kind of the stuff we help out with in the early part, and also the fact that it's an outliner, a bullet outliner allows you to be much more fluid, yet structured when you think about the problem and the solution that you're trying to solve. And then you mentioned Miro. I think Miro is fantastic. But the problem with doing user story maps in Miro is that then there are two problems actually. One problem is that Miro is fantastic for the two-dimensional visualization of like the user story map, and you're getting the kind of stories right. But for a user story, you have the 3 C's, like a card, conversation, confirmation. You get the cards right, but as you deep dive and go like, okay, how do we do this? Like, what acceptance criteria should it be in? Should it be this or that flow? All the discussions that happen around it, they don't kind of map onto it. But with the Delibr document, you have a user story map built into the document, and then you also kind of dive in and add discussions and details to all the user stories as you keep going and slicing. So that's kind of one way, and the other way is that with the user story map as a separate entity, then you have like a separate entity that you need to come back to and potentially update as you go along. But here you have like one fluid motion going from the problem to the user story map to the details of the stories, and then of course all the way into Jira. So you just have a discussion with the user story map, add some details to the stories, and then you just say great, and then you send it to Jira, and then you have all the details already added to Jira. While you have a two-way sync, so the developers come in and they have opinions, then they can change it in Jira, while that's immediately reflected back in the document in user story map. So so kind of taking all of that is otherwise involves a bunch of handovers and a bunch of tricky back and forth, and just making it one smooth integrated flow. That's kind of what we do. So basically, I completely agree with the process that you outlined, Moshe. That's it.
I see. You mentioned in that explanation that it's a Delibr document, I think. You use the word document. So is that, can you explain a bit how it is in the product itself? I mean, unfortunately we're audio only, so you can give us the demo here, but I'm sure people can book up demos on your site and also try it for free, I believe. But what does that mean? Do you when the user goes in and they have to start working with that, well, what do they do exactly?
Yeah, super good question. I think there are two answers to this. One is just like simply in the app. We think it's good to have an agreed process. So basically what happens in Delibr is that you start out with a board, and to the board you add there are like columns. You can define it yourself, but we think a good set of steps is first inbox, where you add a candidate epic, and then definition, where you go and kind of structure your own thinking and make sure that you have a good perspective of what it is. This, I think, is the thing that most resembles the Amazon 6-pager phase. And then you have refinement, where you bring people in and flesh out the details until you go into the next phase, which is development. And then the last column is evaluation. So basically, your epics should go through this kind of process, and throughout the process, the document kind of evolves from being like a stub to having more and more fleshed out details and discussions. So that's kind of the technical answer to what is a document and where does it fit in the app. But then I think a more interesting aspect of the question that I maybe you hinted at, and it's like how and why do you limit yourself to one document, and what's the scope? And here like one epic, and I think it's a very important practice for PMs to find a good level of epic that is above user story, but below kind of OKR, if you know what I mean. Because what you need to do is there's research being done on something called boundary objects, or like collaboration objects, and it's basically you need an entity that describes like a bite-sized piece of work where you can collaborate around with a team and think about as one entity. And that's kind of the core for me what an epic is, because at an epic level you need to articulate the problem, you need to articulate solution, how you're going to measure the success, and so forth. But at the user story level, it's overkill to do that. But you need to always link the stuff you do back up to that level. So that's kind of two sides of it. One is the technical side of it, and one is the kind of figuring out as a team or as a set of product teams, like what is your workable size of feature epic? And here I think it's something that's implementable in like 1 or 2 sprints, or like a couple of weeks, I think is good to have as a size. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, those are really good points. I really like what looks like what Delibr is doing with it. Makes the epic more modular. It makes it a card in the sense that it contains all the detail. And going back to your point about Miro, you do lose the detail. You obviously, two-dimensional is a good way to describe it, because you lose that granularity on what's actually happening. So I do like what Delibr looks to be doing in packaging it all up into a bit of a epic kind of capsule that moves around on the board. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. But I also want to say that I love Miro, and I think our customers still use Miro for kind of user flows, the more detailed ones, and a lot of discussions is really good for that. The only kind of use case that we want to kind of cherry pick away from Miro is the user story mapping, because there, if you do that in Miro, then you interrupt this flow of the epic that goes all the way from problem description to Jira issues in a way.
Yeah, Miro is an unstructured white space where you can do almost anything, and that's where what I see that Delibr brings is that structure specifically and explicitly for product people and for product team in the discovery of how the feature is going to be and what the epic is going to be all about.
Yes.
I also like the point about the discussions capability, where you may be using something like Slack, that you don't have to go outside and get lost in the land of Slack to communicate on an epic. You can do most of that within the epic itself. Maybe speak to that.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, this is this in a way was the starting point. So and it's also actually one part of the book is about kind of decision handling in the when you do an epic. And the way we think about it is that one epic is filled with a bunch of micro decisions that you have to make. And the different PMs handle this differently. I mean, sometimes they have some PMs have like a separate spreadsheet where they write all the decisions that they need to make. And that's a little, I think it's a little bit overkill, but it speaks to the value of keeping track of decisions. And then there's like some PMs, they have a separate section in their feature document that says like questions and decisions. That's good in some ways, but the problem is that it's completely removed from context. What you want to do is you want to have the decisions happen right in the relevant user story or right in the relevant part of the document that you're thinking about. So it's really embedded. And some people do that with just like comments in the document, but then they lose all that structure. So the Delibr solution is basically you work with the document, and whenever a question pops up that you think, of course, you need to use judgment here and not write like 100 questions in an epic, because then you get derailed. But use judgment to figure out, is this an important micro decision? And if it is, then you just type it as a question, and maybe you make a decision immediately, but then maybe you open it up later if somebody has an objection. And by being explicit about the questions that you think underlie the important decisions that you need to make, you expose your thinking to team and stakeholders and invite a much better and more inclusive decision-making process where you can kind of really harness the wisdom of the team, so to speak.
And also these days with remote working, yes. It's one of those tools that enable us to be able to do things when we're not together in the same room.
Exactly. And then, because then on the board, again, coming back to this board overview, then you can see for every document, this document we have 7 decisions that we made, and there are 3 undecided questions here. And then you can just jump in, kind of filter the document for the questions and go in and go like, but I don't agree with this, or, you have forgotten this option. And you can kind of involve the team in a much more efficient way. They can kind of be laser focused on exactly the questions that you need to resolve without coming into this. You refer to, Matt, the Slack, because in Slack, one question can result in like a thread of 20 Slack messages, and then you just look there, you drown. But with Delibr, you just see it crisply in front of you. It's super structured.
Mm-hmm. How do you you mentioned that you're integrated with Jira. What other systems are you integrated with?
So in terms of issue trackers, it's only Jira for now, but of course this is something we're getting requests about regularly. So it's more will be coming, but for now it's only Jira. And then we have a Miro integration and Figma integration. We actually have Slack integration as well, but so I think those are the core ones. Mm-hmm. But the Jira integration is the one that's really really powerful.
Yeah, I just want to note that I really do like that, because I actually had a problem this week about a user feedback tool that integrates with Jira, but there isn't a two-way sync. So Jira can't communicate back with that tool, so it can't update that feedback. So I really like Delibr having a two-way sync with Jira. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually, it's good you mentioned the feedback tools, because many of the feedback tools these days are also roadmaps tools, and they're when you go to roadmaps, many times it's up to the epic level. Well, sometimes also to the feature level, but not to the story level. Are you also considering integrations with roadmapping tools?
Yeah, absolutely. So this morning I was sitting sketching about specifically Productboard, which I think is a fantastic complement.
Yes.
It's really like a Productboard is really a good setup to kind of help you figure out the right feature to work on. But from that point on, they're not very helpful. They get really good, like who asked for this and how does it fit with strategy or whatever. But then as you go down from there and getting all the details right, then it makes a lot of sense to kind of go into Delibr space. And so, and we have some customers that have that flow, and then just linking that directly between would be very helpful.
Yeah, I'm not endorsing any products here on the show, but I started using Productboard recently, And that's exactly what I had in mind when I asked you that question.
I figured.
But then on the other end, I'm using Azure DevOps, not Jira. So that will have to come also on your roadmap.
Yeah, exactly. Azure DevOps is also, in fact, Productboard and Azure DevOps are the top 2 on my list.
And they actually do integrate together, but not to a very high level yet. It's pretty new for them as well. Everyone starts with Jira because most people are using Jira, and then they move to Azure DevOps because some of us are using Microsoft tools around the world. So
yes,
that will be definitely the ecosystem that many of your users will use.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds actually very interesting and exciting because I think that all of us are dealing with that on a daily basis. I have the same type of challenges in my work, and I'm trying to solve them with a Miro board that will have all the links and all the questions and all the answers and all the action items for different people on the discovery team. And it is a mess. It's not very, we're trying to organize it, but it's not very organized because of the nature of the board, of the Miro board. When you grow it from the bottom up together, everyone's supposed to know where everything sits, but it's quite unstructured.
Yeah.
Do you happen to have, could you speak to any of your current customers or use cases that you may have?
We have a bunch of reference customers that we worked really closely with for the past couple of months to kind of to prepare for the launch that we did end of January. And some of the customers are Rakuten, Storytel, Escape Pet, Decision Link, and Secret View. They're some of the ones that was really helpful and also agreed to be like official reference customers. And in general, I think the typical Delibr customer is like a SaaS company or similar to SaaS, or at least they have like a big product and tech function that collaborate and work with Jira. But we don't have any geographical focus. It's like 20 countries and 5 continents. So it really comes down to any company where you have more than one kind of product manager that tries to get structure around how to do a feature refinement.
Very nice. I know you recently launched on Product Hunt. Congratulations on that. So I didn't know if you wanted to speak to that briefly as well.
Yeah, exactly. So the launch on Product Hunt was really centered around us kind of having done a really big round of going back to our most engaged customers and asking, what is it that you really like about Delibr? And then coming back with that and kind of positioning ourselves according to what our customers say. Probably something we should have done to begin with, but we did that recently anyway. And it was we were really happy about the outcome, and we got a really big boost, and also it seems sustained inflow and conversion. So really happy about that.
Yeah, that's great. And that goes to the product market fit, to really understand what people like about it and focus on that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. How do you use it internally, Delibr?
We use it internally. I would say in 2 ways. One way is exactly like like the main use cases. So basically having a board where we detail the epics that we're going to work with, using the structured templates and adding all the discussions and then feeding it into Jira. And then we also use Delibr for pretty much anything, because one thing that has been, I don't know how used you are to outliner tools, but once you get used to working with outliners, there's so much more effective way to think and write. So we tend to do a lot of other types of documents as well in Delibr, and also to turn a lot of the work we do into documents, because it's such an effective way of structuring your thinking when you do it in a bullet structure.
That's interesting. So what you're saying is that, let's say that I need to write even a user guide or an FAQ or something like that.
Yes.
I would start it in Delibr and structure it, and then even collaboratively work with other people to put together the best guide.
I mean, you could, and
Mhm.
once you got going with it, I'm sure you would. But it's not the first use case that we promote.
Right, I understand. Yeah, but you're saying that it could be also used for something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if it's something that you do on a regular basis, where you can have where you have like a process for it. So some of our customers, they use Delibr already now for like stuff like content marketing, and whenever you're in a similar situation to an Epic where you have a process that you go through and each entity has like a template that you could adapt and really work with, then it becomes even more powerful, I would say.
Interesting. Oh, that's it sounds like a very cool product, and I think that I hope that after people hear about it here, they will also go and try it out and contact you, and you give lots of demos.
I hope so too.
Yeah, this is great, and this is there's like as Moshe mentioned, there's a free plan that you offer, and looks like there's an additional upper plan and then an enterprise level plan. So if any of our listeners want to get started with Delibr, there is a way to do that for free. So that's very cool.
Absolutely, and please do reach out as well, and we're happy to help you out to get started and everything like that.
Yeah, what are the different paid plans, and kind of like what's the pricing for those?
Yeah, so first is a freemium up to 3 users, so you can kind of try it out without making any upfront commitment. And then the premium plan is basically $50 per month, up to 10 users, and then $5 per user per month. But we apply fair pricing, so we only charge for the users that are active that month. So yeah,
nice.
And then beyond that, if you start to become really big, it's up for discussion, I guess.
Right.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's the way to go these days.
Yep,
for sure.
Well, Nils, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people best reach you?
I think LinkedIn is really good. I use that a lot.
Awesome. So do
we. And I believe this is how I found your company. I contacted first one of you guys and then introduced you to me. So definitely a good way to reach out to you.
Cool. It's been super nice to be on the show and talking with you guys. Yes, very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Nils.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nils. I look forward to seeing how Delibr grows in the future, and appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks to all the listeners, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.